Today, have you made plans for New Year's or Christmas Eve? Or did COVID put that all on hold?
What's going on with local events, ticketing, timeout, and more?
Then the streaming wars, winners and losers.
And Disney versus YouTube.
I'm Alexa Scordato, and this is Future Forward.
I am Stephen Rosenbaum. Let us launch. Hey, Alexa.
What's up, Steve?
Well, I did have plans for New Year's. And
what's up are the rise in COVID cases.
Yeah, no, but I'm pumped. Did you by any chance watch Saturday Night Live last night?
I did not.
It was super weird.
What happened? So Paul Rudd was the host, right?
Yeah, but there was nothing to host.
Oh, they kind of like canceled the show?
Well, they sent everybody home, and then they ran a bunch of clips, and there was like a couple of skits that they had recorded in rehearsal that they kept, but yeah, no, it was.
Did he even do like a monologue?
Without filling up the whole pod with it, it was just it was not only was it weird, but it was like just a sign of the times. It was like,
I mean, it is so apropos though. Like if you look at, do you know what happened with the Nets this week? The Brooklyn Nets? Half the team had COVID. So Kyrie Irving, one of their star players, he refused to get vaccinated. So he was basically not playing for several games. And then all these Nets players were dropping like flies. So the Brooklyn Nets had to go negotiate some kind of like COVID protocol with Kyrie Irving because they were so desperate to get people who could play. Rather than cancel, like they're literally trying to get players from like scrappy leagues. It's bizarre.
So, I think it's, again, who knows? And we won't spend, listeners promise we won't spend the whole podcast talking about COVID. We've got lots more to cover.
It's just so hard not to.
It is indeed hard. All right, so let's talk about events. Let's jump in and talk about events because that's our first segment, and it relates to, when you're looking for things to do, like, do you use, any of these apps?
I don't use this new Go Disco one. This one I hadn't heard of. It's so funny. Here, this might be a little bit controversial. I often think it's not even about finding something to do. I think I start from a place of who do I find someone to do it with?
Yeah. Why is that controversial? I totally get that.
I don't know, because it's almost like technology can't necessarily solve that. Well, if your friends are busy, it doesn't matter how good an app is. I'm probably not going to go out. I used to be better about going out alone.
So I think you've actually hit on something which is important, which is what's going on and who from my community has either gone to it and recommends it or is thinking of going to it and would tell me to go.
Right. So this is interesting. This headline says, Go Disco curates local events. So you are like the curation expert. Based off of what you know about this app, do you feel like there's anything specific about how it curates that is a differentiator?
So the word curate has gotten mauled so badly. I mean, when I was writing about it regularly, it was because curation was human. It was, Alexa saying to me, have you seen this great show that's on, about, murder in the building on the Upper West Side, which I never would have watched except you recommended it. But and people, even back when I was writing about curation and wrote the book, people were like, well, is there such a thing as algorithmic curation? And I was like, no, don't mess with my words. But I do get it. And, so I get a lot of pings from timeout. But it's noisy. And then Eventbrite is always haranguing me with tickets to things. Mm-hmm. I have not yet used Go Disco. And I guess I should. try it. Um, this is the TechCrunch article. It says Go Disco is an event recommendation engine. Um,
You know what's interesting is in these times that we live in, what I would appreciate from really any venue or event-based service is health policies, meaning like well, in New York City, they do require vaccines for people to gather indoors. It would be interesting if, you know, there was even like a filter where you showed like a negative COVID test or something like that as well.
so I went to a movie screening the other night. You know, triple vax, all ID, all that stuff, and they're like, we're making everyone take a COVID test, and they had it set up at the screening station, but they were backed up, and it was going to take an hour for the results, and the movie
Wow, an
started in
hour?
30. Yeah,
Oh my gosh.
and the movie started in 30 minutes, so we
So you
left.
bailed? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, listeners, if you have advice or not, I've yet to see, but I've been invited to like 19 screenings of Licorice Pizza.
Licorice pizza. Interesting. Okay.
So I don't know if it's good or bad. The reviews are good. Um, I guess my question about events, and I think you actually nailed it at the very top of the show, like how much of it's about recommendations, how much of it's about who's going, how much of it is about can I get a deal on tickets, like what does it cost? Um, I think, and then how far is it, right? That's the other thing about being in New York is that, whenever I'm talking to someone who's on a support line and they're like, well, you could go pick up the part you need. It's only 4.5 miles away. I'm like, it's in New Jersey. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. I think, if I were to design my own kind of recommendation engine, it would really start from this place of asking you, the user, one question, which is, do you know what you want to do? Or are you in the mindset of discovering something you'd be open to doing? Because I actually think that really makes a huge difference. Because there are some nights where I'm like, I really want to be in like a loud social environment where the vibe is like very music driven, dance oriented, etc. Or it might be like I actually want to be really inspired. I want to go see a performance, something art related, etc. And I feel like that's different than I'm so bored. I haven't really gone out in a few days and it's sort of like it's like the Google I'm feeling lucky button.
So I love the idea of your app and I would love to help you build it. But before we get to building it, I think we ought to just ask one really hard question. Other than a handful of urban centers, are there really enough events that kind of like, you know, hey, I want to be inspired. Well, you went to the one museum in town last week. Do you want to go again?
Yeah, I mean this is a very New York centric
It is
conversation.
very New York.
But
No,
I will say
but
though, I
that's okay.
travel enough, like where I've been to smaller cities all around the world.
I think event curation is, yeah, again, maybe Go Disco solves it. And so we will poke around there. But if not, we should build it.
Yeah.
All right, let's jump to the YouTube Disney battle, because it's hard to feel bad about either one of these two companies.
Right.
I mean,
Uh so when I saw this headline, so what was interesting is I subscribed to Hulu and I've been very frustrated with the Hulu app just in terms of it crashing. It's just like very glitchy. And I was about to explore canceling Hulu in favor of YouTube TV. And then I saw this headline and I stopped.
so the fact that YouTube TV is cutting its subscribers a $15 a month discount because they lost the Disney offerings is that's a big concession.
Right.
And part of it is people forget Disney isn't Disney, right? So Disney is ESPN, it's ABC, it's FX, it's
Yep.
kind of Hulu too.
Yep. The Disney Channel. Yeah. There's a lot of Disney.
Here's what I find interesting. These battles go on between cable companies and networks all the time, right? And it's always almost around a big sporting event. Like that's the lever is,
Right. Like
Final
who's going to
Four is
air the
coming up.
Giants games this fall or something?
Well, or I want a price increase and we'll negotiate right up to the big sporting event that people are going to freak out that they don't have access to ESPN. I'm interested in how big a gap there is between what Disney's asking for and what YouTube was willing to spend.
Hmm.
I mean, it couldn't have been pennies, right?
Right. And I actually was trying to find out if there was like a amount disclosed. No, it's a black box. And there was recently like also a thing with Roku where Roku subscribers were going to lose YouTube.
Well, on Roku, my Spectrum TV app was out of, there'd been a battle between Spectrum and Roku. I didn't even know Roku charged to get access, quote, to its subscribers because I don't think of myself as a Roku subscriber. I thought I bought a piece of hardware. But
Same.
yeah, turns out not so much.
So weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I think um, I think consumers are fickle, and I think consumers are, to your point, willing to either add or drop. I've never used YouTube TV. They harass me about it all the time, and I've just like, I don't like their marketing. I think it's too aggressive.
It is, but I know people who subscribe and love it because it's like a cable replacement. It has DVR functionality, you know, if you want to watch live sporting events, etc. It's good for that. The Today Show in the morning.
I should, so I use a cloud DVR and a low cost cable deal through Spectrum. It's never occurred to me that YouTube TV was a competitor to that. That's
Yep.
interesting.
Yeah, that's why people like it because instead of paying Spectrum, you're paying YouTube and it has a better interface because it's built by YouTube. Whereas Spectrum is Spectrum.
So let's go to this state of streaming battle because like there's a lot of interesting ups and downs. This is an article in observer.com.
So there's one stat here that actually says that consumers are kind of not that fickle because they're not really changing their subscriptions that much, right? Like 68% aren't.
Yeah.
So that's like a pretty high retention rate, right? That
Does
actually
that mean
that surprised me.
does that mean that Apple TV gave away all those 1 year tests and then people stayed with it?
Yeah, and that's what I interpreted it to be, unless this is people got it for free and it hasn't well, no, because it's May 2020. It's not May 2021. I was gonna say maybe a year hasn't passed yet. Nope, but it has.
So I'm going to argue this is a crappy stat because what services have you canceled? And the lowest is Discovery Plus, but that's because it has the lowest number of people that subscribe to it. That's it.
Yeah, but I think overall though, the whether it's 2% or Apple TV 6%, it's still like a lot lower than I thought.
I wonder if this would be the case if COVID was not overlapped with this growth of streamers.
It might be. It also might just be ease of purchase and relative cost. So, for example, we bit the bullet and we wound up just streaming the latest James Bond movie, even though you said you didn't like it, Steve. We just wanted to like close
Yeah.
out the Daniel Craig era. And, you know, I thought it was gonna be like $4.99 or something, like, to rent. No, it was like 18 bucks on Amazon. And so there was, like, some hesitation, right? Like, "Oh, this is not $4.99, it's, like, almost $20." But then we were like, if we went to the movies, you know, like, the average, like, it would have cost us, like, $60 because by the time you pay
Yep.
for both tickets and get, like, a snack or something, you're out 60
Yeah.
bucks.
I, and now there were more movies coming out that were theatrical only in the last week or two, but I think that's going to run headlong into COVID. Um,
Right, so
yeah, I
I was
mean,
thinking, like, okay, like, ho if Apple TV is 48 is, $5 a month, right? It's like, so that's $60 a year, and there are 2 shows people have strongly recommended that I watch on Apple TV: Ted Lasso and The Morning Show. And so
Ted
when
Lasso, Ted Lasso, yes. The morning show is kind of, it's like if you care about the media business and you like the drama of being in a TV studio, you can almost kind of settle into it, but it's a little fingernails on a blackboard.
okay, but let's
Like
just say maybe there's 1.5 shows, 1 to
Ted
2
Lasso is
shows
wonderful.
worth watching, right? And there are 2 seasons of Ted Lasso. So you just think like, okay, a cost of a movie, 60 bucks, a cost of an annual subscription, $60, and I get access to these 2 shows that I'm potentially interested in watching. Like, it's like I get that these subscriptions add up, but this is just me, like, talking out loud, like, the logic of subscribing and keeping it. Like, it almost just feels like it's, 1, so easy to buy it, and then 2, what you get in terms of convenience and access feels like a no-brainer, to me at least.
What's the name of that product? There's a software product that will scour your credit card bills and see all the subscriptions you
Oh,
have that you can.
Truebill.
Yeah. Have you ever used it?
I do. I use it.
Does it work?
Yes.
I got right up to doing it, and then there was something sketchy about they take half of the savings or something.
Yeah, so for example, like if the New York Times, like if say it's a New York Times subscription, and then it's like they're running a promo and it's like, "Oh, you know what? You can save $20." They'll take like 5 of it.
Hmm. All right. So you're saying not sketchy. All right. Well, maybe I'll do Truebill then,
It
because
just
I do.
what you have to do is like, I mean, some of it is it's almost worth going through the onboarding just because it itemizes like all of your subscriptions. And then what I like from the utility standpoint is it sends me alerts if there's like an annual renewal coming up or a monthly renewal, just so that I can really keep tabs on like, oh, here's my chance to cancel.
You don't find it like stalkerish?
No.
Interesting. I have a spreadsheet. I don't use it though.
I mean, this is like where I feel like sometimes I just contradict myself as a user because I'll opt into services like this where I'm like, here, get the API access to all of my credit cards and bank statements. But then there are other times where I'm like, no, I will not post my photos on Instagram anymore because I don't want Meta to have my cookies.
Okay. Every show has a quote that I want to write down, and that one does definitely a quote. I don't want Meta to have my cookies. That's very
Yeah.
funny. Um, I think so. So let me give you a prediction about the streaming wars. Um, I imagine we're going to start seeing bundles,
Hmm.
and I think the consumer exhaustion, having to keep track of this, every time anyone says it's only $5 a month, my head explodes because I'm just like, you mean $60 a year, right?
But
Like,
we already have that. There's already a great bundle there, which is Disney. Oh, so you can do Hulu with like the live TV, Disney Plus, and ESPN. all bundled together. And then
Is
there's
that the
also a bundle.
$15?
I forgot how much it costs, but then there's also a bundle with like Spotify and Hulu on the family plan. So it's like this is actually, and I'll say this now, if someone wants to build this, cool, run with it. But like there's an opportunity to just basically like Truebill where it'll scan like your subscriptions. There should be a service where you plug in basically the accounts that you have or want and the number of people who are going to share the account, and then it'll optimize um like where you can save based off of existing bundles.
I like that idea. I like that. I like that idea of like, but how do you know how many people can share a login before it notices that it's
Right.
got too many IP addresses coming after
Right,
it?
because there a lot of them now let you create like profiles, like who's watching, right? So it's like that's the calculation that you need, right? It's like how many people can share a login? Do they need to be physically in the same household, right? Um, what subscriptions are you interested in, and then it should just optimize basically the tier. And like you want someone to be like, guess what, you subscribe to Spotify Plus Premium, you subscribe to Hulu, and your relatives or family also do this, you should all just bundle into this one subscription and save $5 a month. I would build this and then just take all the savings and then like donate it.
So I guess the one thing that I worry about in terms of all of this kind of, is it seems to be the price of access to television, for example, never goes down,
Right.
right? Nothing ever gets cheaper. Nothing ever gets more affordable. Like,
I mean it has, in the sense that all of these big platforms are competing for a subscriber. So it's sort of like when Uber and Lyft hit the market, right? It was like so a no-brainer to call an Uber or a Lyft relative to a cab. But what's interesting is now that they have market penetration, right? A cab is actually competitive to the cost of Uber because Uber's game is no longer acquiring a user. They already acquired the users. So like this is just we're still in its infancy in terms of streaming wars, where each platform is playing the game of acquiring us. And so they're willing to leverage deep discounting in order to do that. Because again, when you look at the stats and you look at the churn, if you can basically discount years 1 and 2, you're going to retain that customer that's worth X dollars over a certain, say, 5-year period. It's worth it to them. So it's actually cheaper now, but I anticipate that costs will go up over time. And what's going to happen is you will, to your point, have a mega bundle that is the equivalent of
cable.
Spectrum or Comcast or whatever, or your digital satellite TV, and we're just going to repeat that cycle.
Mega bundle. Heard it here first, everybody.
Yeah.
The mega bundle, otherwise known as cable TV.
Yeah.
All right. So as we run out of time,
Maybe
I guess
that's your next great startup, Steve. Cable, CABL, no E.
uh, I'll add that to my list of things I'm going to build this weekend over the
Yes,
break. Um, how are we going to? How are you? Like, do you know people that are going on vacation? Do you know people that are getting on airplanes?
I do.
And are they considering canceling?
This past week was interesting because I feel like everything escalated fast. Last week, people were all going to holiday parties, planning trips, hosting get-togethers, and then midweek, people started reporting that they were getting COVID. The New York City recorded its highest number of positive cases over the course of the entire pandemic. Did you see that?
Yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh. And Now everything is actually canceled. Not
Yep.
everything, but like you are seeing offices that are like, oops, JK, you can't come in 20%, you can't come in 50% capacity, like you can't come in at all. And no holiday parties, no sanctioned gatherings, nothing.
We had our team holiday party scheduled for Wednesday lunch, and Wednesday morning we canceled it.
Mm-hmm. And I think what's happening is, at least this is what's happening in my family, is we are making choices to gather, but it's like people have to be double, triple vaccinated and PCR tested.
Does that just mean you're standing in line like for crazy hours?
No, I mean I'm out of the city, so I can do a rapid PCR at a drive-through at a CVS, but you have to book the appointments like well in advance. So I kind of anticipated that Omicron was going to kind of take over. So I took it upon myself weeks ago to actually schedule several tests, like
Wow.
pre and post holiday gatherings.
Are they expensive?
My insurance covers it.
Interesting. Interesting. All right. Well, we are out of time. Everyone, stay healthy, stay safe, stay home.
Mask up outside. Don't be shy about asking people what their status is. Seriously, just
Yep.
ask people, are you vaccinated?
That's
Set your
what we're doing.
boundaries.
All right. Have a good, safe holiday. See you guys. Bye.
Bye.